right there. All right. Senator Bates.
Thank you, Senator Bell. Actually, members, I'm here with just a presentation today. I won't be asking for a vote.
Okay.
I think it's a great segue from your comment a few minutes ago, Senator Bell, when you said we can't kind of reconstruct this whole thing and reform it in 3 days. And I think that's the problem with approach on STIP funding. As you know, it's very complex, many levels in it. So I took up the bill because I've seen at the local level great success in getting projects done in less time than it has taken, you know, with many of the interregional Caltrans projects. We need to be able to take the money that's available and get it out there and get it on the dirt as quickly as possible. And interestingly enough, a number of the letters that have come in, they're not opposed to the plan, but they're concerned about block granting and what that means in terms of the ability to have oversight, accountability. That's what we need to be able to build into this proposal. I want to thank our committee consultants who were certainly very forthcoming in their criticism of it, but proposed an amendment that's on page 4. Right. And I think that's a great step in the right direction to try to take a look at how we could take that block of money and get it out for the projects. There is a concept that we use, the subvention approach that we have with local government funding. Certainly that needs more work. How would we approach that in terms of having the formula approach? And also my concern with that process is to ensure that we have accountability and oversight in terms of local governments when they get those dollars, that they are prepared to put them to projects and get those projects out very quickly. So the conversation that I'd like to direct us to today, and I was supposed to have someone who might be an expert in discussing a subvention concept for STIP funding to share some of that in our discussion. And I'm not sure if we have someone from LAO or our consultants themselves that might at least explain how the subvention process work and how it would work here with transportation revenues, because that would be the direction that I would be going in, keeping the bill alive and bringing it either back through our special session or taking it to the regular session, because it does deal with funding for more of the capital projects rather than the maintenance. But that is an issue also in terms of how we get that money out there quickly, more quickly. So.
Yeah, I think right now there's not much money in the STIP, so it's okay to talk about this, right? I mean, it's a good time to talk about it, actually, because there's not much money in the STIP, okay? I think, you know, we all know that the funding of transportation projects in California has evolved kind of. It's gone for where Caltrans would fund the projects, and most of the money would come from the STIP, the State Transportation Improvement Plan. And now it's the Caltrans, the STIP funding is kind of a small portion of the funding of these projects. Most of the projects are funded through like half-cent sales tax or other local generated funds. So the local governments are, you want to say it, the majority shareholder in the discussion. So the concept that the state, what's the role of the state? Should it stay the same or should it be adjusted, given the fact that the local governments are the ones that are charged with really raising most of the money right now in California, or have raised the most of the money?
I think it's 50%.
So, at least, yeah. Yeah, in most counties, it's at least 50%. So that's kind of a, but do you want to have somebody explain or talk about subvention? You have a staff person that could, maybe one of the staff? Yeah, Eric here. We'll have a committee consultant explain it. Introduce yourself.
Eric Thronson with the committee. I'm not sure what you're asking, how subvention works. Is that what you want me to?
Yes, how it would be applied with the funds that come in for transportation. and how we would use the subvention process. Now, what they were talking about is a monthly allocation. I would personally have an issue with that unless it's just a fund that starts to build up on a monthly basis. So let's say the County of Los Angeles at the end of a 6-month, quarter, 6-month, or a year process has X number of dollars that are there for appropriation under subvention on that subvention formula allocation for their transportation projects.
Sure, so it could be structured in any number of ways. So right now there is, all of the STIP funding comes from a thing that we call the price-based excise tax, which is the excise tax that we use to replace the sales tax on gasoline. And right now it's divided, 44% of it goes through subventions monthly from the controller right to locals, cities and counties. 44% of it funds the STIP, and 12% of it funds the SHOP. That 44% that goes to the STIP, 75% of that is regionally controlled. The projects flow from the regional transportation improvement plans or program, and the 25% is the state's control. So what you were talking about in the amendments for this bill would be to take that 75% of the 44%, which is 33% of the total package or total amount of money raised, and to subvent that to the regions. Because the regions are the ones that are controlling, generally speaking, control those projects in the STIP.
And they have things like county minimums.
And there's they go out based on county shares, which are calculated by the CTC and Caltrans. Now, if you subvented them the way we subvent the 44% that goes straight to the locals, I think it goes out on a monthly basis from the controller. But I mean, you could fashion it any way you'd like. You could have it only go out once a year, I suppose, or however you wanted to do it.
I'm thinking it should go out based on what their regional transportation improvement plan is, because that shows what projects are actually going to be ready and what they have done moving forward with those, which is always has been a problem in terms of whether locals are ready to use the money that's there. I think, isn't it a 3-year timeline on actually using the money for a project that they have approved currently in the STIP? So there's so many levels, colleagues, on how you get your money and how you have matching funds from the local dollars, that this is a very complex approach to trying to get STIP, I think, more flexible and also not so much bureaucracy in the review of it, and then, of course, accountability for the expenditure. So it is something that needs a lot more work, and I don't think we didn't assess that as well as we could have when we decided to kind of wander into this, because I have a number of letters, one here from the rural counties, which really applaud, they don't use that term, but they are very high on trying to reform the process, and then a list of concerns they have as we approach that, and that's what really needs to be vetted more. So we can bring this back. But it would be, I think, a real accomplishment in terms of the delivery of transportation improvement projects if we find a more easily navigable process to get dollars from those that are received here, our revenues, and out to our locals, our regional planning agencies to actually get projects underway.
Another thing I could say is that there's another pot. I don't know, it has to be protected, I think, to some extent, and it's called the interregional pot of funds. And that's the pot that is for highways that connect various regions, like the Central Valley to Los Angeles or to San Bernardino or in between regions. And those kinds of funds are generally controlled by the State Commission, allocated to Caltrans highway projects. Okay, so that's a separate from what you're talking about. But I think the process, we could streamline it and supply cash to projects in an efficient way. The projects could complete it faster. That's the goal.
Yes.
So let's continue to discuss this. I think it's very important. Other comments from other senators?
I guess
Senator Wachowski.
I guess my question, I'm old enough to remember block grants, and what would a true block grant in the STIP look like? I mean, it seems like we've got this hybrid with 44% or 75%, and how would that change or improve the delivery of projects if we just went with a complete block grant program for state transportation improvement programs? I mean, that's radical, I get it, but.
It is very radical, and that's where a lot of the concerns are raised because of the way it's currently allocated. And to try to find a pure process where you get your, $200 million, here it is, and here's your state transportation improvement program, go. And it eliminates a lot of the oversight, which is the question, and also can create inequities with the rural counties and then the more urbanized counties. The rural counties are concerned because they do things a little differently, and I'm not an expert on that. I know how we do it at, in the two counties I represent.
But it seems to me that just brings, you have Orange County and you have, what else is out there? Another county, San Diego County. And
they're both self-help.
Under the block grant, you get your chunk of cash. Mm-hmm. Okay, so this year's allocation you get in, then these folks all meet, they have regional meetings, and then they negotiate. I mean, they have priorities of what the projects would have. I get, because now we still, we're the state government. We like to have strings and sort of control where the money gets spent instead of allowing the local regional planners to spend it.
And that's one of the issues, Senator, in terms of the accountability and the oversight, that you actually have projects ready to go instead of receiving a big chunk of money and then it's sitting there 2, 3, 4 years, which can happen because a lot of the issues regarding capital projects, you have right-of-way issues, you have local opposition, how do you get through all of that and not let a local government, which has happened before, not use the money. At the Transportation Authority, we have to, if a local government that has a project with our county and it's not moving forward, they can request an extension, but they have to, you have to make findings that were legitimate in terms of the delays of that project. And sometimes that's very difficult when it's been just community opposition, for example, to legitimize, not taking that money, letting them keep that money instead of moving it to a project that's ready to go and needs that extra influx of cash. So you have to move it around anyway. So what are the rules of the game? That those can be impacted by just, giving somebody a block grant as we were looking at without some, conditions for the receipt of the money and the use of the money.
Okay. I think it's a legitimate discussion. It's what you want to do is you want to try to match your cash flow to a project that builds the project in a what I call unrestrained mode, where it's not restrained by fiscal conditions. It's a project schedule that complete the project based on the construction timeline, so you can build it as quickly as you can, based on what is from a construction management feasible timeline. And you want the cash flow to come in to match that timeline rather than have to wait until you build up a certain amount of cash. I think that's going to be a problem with some of the local areas. They might have some project, they might say, well, I have to store up the money for 3-5 years. And in 3 to 5 years, we just wasted 3 to 5 years of inflation. The cost of the project went up. So for what I'm talking about to work, I hate to say this, but Senator Gaines is going to comment on this. We have to have some kind of short-term financing. He keeps bringing up bonds and stuff. But I think we need to have some mix where we allow these locals to do some cash flow management timeline if we're going to do a subvention kind of system, especially for smaller, medium-sized counties that have, if they got the money on the formula, the subvention formula, it might not be enough to finish an interchange project or something.
Right.
They need to build it up over time. But if we allow some financing, we used to call this Garvey bonds. I think they call it. They get still called that. that kind of financing can complete the projects quicker. So that would be a subject of interest, I think, for all of us to deliver these projects faster. I mean, we need to do that. We need to work on the project delivery because that's what people want. They want the projects delivered quick. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of creative people that have figured out how to do this. Senator Berryhill, you have some comments?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, and Senator, not that I want to scare any of my counties. I've got a lot of them in my district. I've got about 11 counties. Some of them are self-help, some of them aren't.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But in your vision, Senator, what would it look, I mean, how would this look like if we did something like what you're talking about? And you've got some of these counties that are self-help, they're going to get a bigger portion of the pie. Would that be an assumption that's...
Well, it's, Senator, it's something that is an issue that has to be vetted because it is different. There's no cookie cutter answer to those. And I think what's really a problem is if they don't have the matching grant funds to accomplish their project, whereas bigger counties and self-help counties have already planned on that. So those are some of the nuanced issues that need to be discussed more in depth.
Yeah, I don't want to scare any of those my smaller counties that aren't self-help, but again, to give them a little edge along to say, you know what, if you're doing it, it's probably going to help you a little bit more. I think it'd be a pretty good carrot to put in front of them.
And I think that that's what their letter indicates, Senator, that they really like the idea, but they have a list of issues that they want answers to, and we don't have those at this point in time in terms of how we'd actually put it into language that ensures that they do get their fair share and they get it in a manner in which they can actually actualize their projects.
Well, thank you. I look forward to working with you.
Hey, any other comments? Senator McGuire.
Thank you so much, and do appreciate Senator Bates for bringing this forward and for the committee as well as the chair working on this. I want to echo some of the concerns that Senator Berryhill just brought forward. So out of the 7 counties within the North District, only 2 are self-help. Mm-hmm. Every other county is extremely poor. In fact, the poorest county in the state of California exists in the north. And for them to be able to compete against self-help, it's going to be a real challenge under this current formula. So that is a concern that I would have going forward. And when we take a look at rural road conditions, per capita, they're actually worse than urban without the revenue to be able to fix them. So that's where I'm concerned in regards to this one specific proposal and how that would look to be able to help them in, because they're already in a world of hurt and unable to dig out because they don't have the dollars to be able to put up.
Right.
Yeah.
And that is a concern and been raised in their correspondence also.
Yeah,
so we're looking, we'll be looking at all that.
No, and I really appreciate that. I know that you are sincere in that, and I do want to say thank you.
I want to see roads on our dirt, and I want to see potholes fixed. And I wouldn't be here unless I hadn't gotten involved in transportation early on in our communities, had the same issues then. So we're working very hard to come up with something that I think for the smaller counties, a priority list. They all know what the worst, problem in their region is, and focusing all their dollars on that with a vote of the people, which we've had in both San Diego and Orange County. That's how you get that money shifted to those priorities. And I'm not sure that they've done that kind of prioritization, which should be part of this granting or subventing process that, here's my project and I need my money, this year or, this month even, and I can accomplish this project.
I appreciate that. I think my closing item is that in addition to potholes, we actually still have city streets that are gravel. So you get off the main drag in Clear Lake, California, completely dirt and gravel. Mm-hmm. They can't afford to even pave their streets. And so to be able to cut that funding even further.
What city is that now?
Clear Lake.
Oh, Clear
in
Lake.
Lake County.
Okay.
They've tried 4 times for a tax. And because it's such a poor county, it's a challenge. It's a city of 10,000 folks. And it's amazing that we're even talking about this in California. But I think that is just the bottom line, is that how can we help those that are just struggling to be able to maintain?
Yeah.
Okay. Senator Gates has a comment.
Yeah, thank you.
Senator Gaines.
I don't mean to pile on, but I think Senator Berryhill brought up a key issue. I represent 11 counties, many of them rural. Sac County is self-help. I've got a couple of wealthier counties, but the remaining, it's a much tougher prospect. So if that was just built in, that there was an element of fairness in terms of that allocation, that would be very helpful. And I have been talking on a separate note, but since the chair brought it up, about this opportunity for bonding, and just think that it would be a pathway to solve part of the problem, and that we ought to be looking at revenue bonds, so it wouldn't take money out of the general fund, and we'd be using money that really ought to be dedicated for road maintenance and or construction. That might be a way that we could give ourselves a boost, and I've talked to a number of members in this committee about that, and I just think that that's something we ought to keep looking at. So, thank you.
I think that there's a place for bonding, especially since the price is pretty good right now. The prices are good for municipal or state government bonds, and our credit is pretty good right now for the state of California. And if we had revenue-backed bonds, that would be probably the best way to do it. Any other comments from people? Okay. Thank you, Senator.
I will be back.
Okay, thank you. This is the last meeting of this committee under this special session, unless they call us back. You know, you never know. But as the chair of the committee, I want to say thank you to all the senators for participating in this open dialogue that we've had. And I'm very pleased that we were able to approve a bipartisan set of recommendations coming out of this committee, so that our colleagues in the Senate have a bipartisan recommendation, and that we were able to discuss all the bills that were presented to this committee in a full manner, receive public input, and make decisions on several of them. So I appreciate everybody, and with that, we'll adjourn this meeting. Oh, we'll lift the call. We have one more. Thank you. We'll lift the call, please, on Senator Huff's bill.
File item 2, SCA X11 by Senator Huff. The motion is be adopted and refer to the Committee on Appropriations. The current vote is 11-0. Chair and Vice Chair voting aye. Hertzberg? Aye. Hertzberg, aye. Pavley? It's 12-0.
Senator Pavley's she coming?
She's coming.
Okay, Senator Pavley, we'll place that on call for our absent member to vote. Okay? Thank you, senators. Thanks, sir. Bob, thank you. Good job. Okay, yes, only one vote.
File item 2, SCA X11 by Senator Huff. The motion is be adopted and refer to the Committee on Appropriations. Current vote is 12-0. Chair and Vice Chair voting aye. Pavley? Aye. Pavley, aye. It's out.
Okay, that constitutional amendment is approved on a 13-0 vote. And with that, we're adjourned.